Hi, everybody. Today we have our guest from Adelaide. Our guest is Jean Downton, and she and I've spent time chatting on the phone together and texting each other. We've never met in person, but it's lovely to see your face today, Jean. Hi. Thank
Oh,
you for being with us. I'm
pleasure.
sorry that you have to be here, but you are. Jean, we like to know who you are, not what you do. So who's Jean?
Who's Jean? Well, for the last 10 years, I have been a carer, wife, sometimes a mother to Greg, who had MND. And it's awful to say, but that's how I feel. That's who I am. It's been a big part of our life, the MND journey. So, yeah, that's who I am.
Who you are at the moment.
Yeah,
Um, Sadly for you, Greg died.
yes, he
When
did.
did he die?
He died on the 1st of November 2025, so just over a couple of months ago. It came up, and I knew this. It's funny how I knew it all along that it could be very sudden, and but it was, and it still was a bit of a shock. In mid-October, he was doing reasonably well. I even found a text that he sent a friend saying, "Hey, I'm feeling good. My breathing's improved. I'll be around for a bit longer." And 2 weeks later, he's in hospital and he went. And so it can happen so fast. And even though I knew that, it still was a shock.
It's still a huge shock. It's
Mm.
funny. We
Mm.
know that we know the ultimate outcome, but it's still always a shock. It
Yeah.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about Greg prior to MND.
Prior to MND, Greg used to, well, he was one of those guys that just, and I'll probably cry now. He, um, he just, he lit up the room. He was funny. He always had a joke. He had the quickest sense of humor. He was very witty. He was the king of the comeback line, and I loved that. He was very practical. He We've got around my house now. I've got the botanic gardens because Greg just loved gardening. He loved it, and he loved the fact that it just looked fantastic. He had a way of designing things in the garden. People used to, all our neighbours asked him what to do around the place, and he just was very good. He was a great father to our kids. He just was always hands on. Anything that needed fixing, he would fix it. He just had one of those personalities that everybody loved.
What did he do for work?
Well, he did a few things. He started off when I met him, he worked for telecom. At the time, it was telecom, and but then he ended up getting into his passion, which was grounds. And his last job when he was diagnosed, he was a groundsman at the school where I worked, actually, a large school, and he got those grounds looking amazing because when he first started working there, he was a maintenance guy, and he just saw the gardens were terrible, and he went and spoke to the business, said, I can fix your gardens for you. And
Brilliant.
they said, yep, all right, we'll change you over to a groundsman. And he fixed the gardens for them,
Oh,
made a huge difference. Yeah. So he was a groundsman, which you can imagine when he was diagnosed with MND, that was a problem because it's quite a physical job.
yeah.
And, the physical side of it became very difficult.
How long was his diagnosis?
How long ago?
How long did it take? Sorry, I know it's 10 years. How long did it take for the diagnosis?
Look, he noticed he had an issue in March of 2015, and but he initially didn't do anything about it straight away. From the time he saw his GP, it was about 6 months. But when he saw his GP, we were really fortunate that the GP recognised that it could be a neurological problem. And he said to him, you need to go and see a neurologist. That
Wow.
was the first thing. Whereas a lot of people we know get the runaround.
Yeah.
And so he came home thinking, why do I need to see a neurologist? My hand's a bit funny. And
Wow.
but he thought, oh, whatever. What? It took about 3 months, of course, to get into a neurologist. And then we were fortunate again that the neurologist recognised that it could be a serious problem, but at the
Oh,
same time, we were not expecting it. He went to the appointment on his own, and he came back and said to me, I just said, how was the appointment? What happened? And he said, and he didn't answer me. And I said, Greg, what happened? And he was visibly shaken, and he said, well, it's serious. He's not sure, but he said it's serious. I've got to have an MRI, and the next time I come back, I have to bring a support person.
God, I hate
And
that.
I just, what? Like, where did this come from? And I thought, well, I'm supposed to be the support person, but I need a support person because it was a huge shock to me as well.
Of course it was.
So he had 3 MRIs. We ended up going to Sydney, to the Mind and Brain Centre in Sydney,
Mhm.
because there were just some things that our neurologist just wasn't sure about, and he said, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, we went to Sydney for the day and went to the centre there, and they pretty much said, yeah, it can't be anything else. It has to be this.
I have to say that your neurologist is pretty impressive
Yeah.
for a whole lot of reasons, but
Yeah.
also for saying, you know what, I'm not exactly sure, so we need a
Mm.
bit more help. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
He didn't give us any false hope.
Mm.
No, he said, look, this is serious. It is something that could be life changing. But I'm not 100% sure. He did tell us outright that he suspected motor neuron disease. So he didn't muck around with that. Yeah, but he said there are still some things we can do to, it might be something else. He said, look, I know this sounds really strange, but I'm hoping when we do the next MRI that we find a tumor or something.
Yeah.
And he said, and when we walked into his rooms and he had Greg's scan up on his computer and it was totally clear, I'm thinking, oh, that's great, fantastic. And he goes, no, it's not actually. We actually want something there, but there's not. And he said that makes me think that I am correct, but I really don't want to be correct.
I was reading through my writings a while back, and
Mm.
one of the sentences that I wrote was, when cancer is the better option.
Oh, I
And
know.
it's exactly
I
the
know.
same as what
I
you're.
know. Whoever would have thought? Because
I
it is,
know.
and I'm not trying to downplay the
No,
effects
no,
of being diagnosed with cancer
me
either.
either. Not at all. But it's
But
just,
at least you can say, okay, well, what do I do next?
mm,
Whereas when you're diagnosed with MND, it's like, well, what do I do next? Well, go and contact your local state association, and
yeah.
that's go book a holiday, go and do something that you want to do because your time is limited now. That's basically it.
10 years is a long time in anybody's
Yeah.
book. How long was Greg mobile for after his diagnosis?
Yeah, it's so easy to forget.
Mm.
His his mobility was affected straight away, but he could still walk. It was more that he would fatigue really easily. So the MND started in his left arm. So his legs for a little while were okay, but I did notice that he would just fatigue and he would have to have a lot of rest. He couldn't do the same amount of walking, but he still could walk. So it was only really the last 3 to 4 years, 3 to 4 years where he was totally reliant on a wheelchair. Um, Up until then, he could use a walker. For a long time, he would use a shopping trolley. If we went shopping, he would use the trolley, and no one knew. No one knew. But then he would start using a walker, and then he went from a walker to a wheelchair. But he could still do short distances around the house. But if we went out, he had a wheelchair. And then it was only probably it was around the time of COVID that he started to really struggle. He could still transfer, so we could move him from his recliner to a walker. We could, or his desk was about 3 steps away from his recliner, so he could do that, but nothing more. It was all about the transfer. So for the last 3 to 4 years, it was totally reliant on equipment.
How are your kids?
They're really good. I was thinking 10 years ago, they were quite young when their dad was diagnosed. Um, they've handled it with an amazing amount of strength and resilience. And, you know, uh, I suppose that's the thing that hurts me the most is I think I'll cope, but I'm really sad that my kids have lost their dad.
Yeah, I know.
That's a hard thing, especially as I know he would have been around at their homes fixing up their gardens and doing things like that. He would have. And I know, the last few years, our oldest son bought a new house, and it had steps going into the house,
Oh,
so he just wasn't able to see in the house. We just couldn't get him in. So there was one, I remember it was an Australian Day holiday, and we drove around there, and we just sat out the front of their house under a big gum tree and just had morning tea there. So he never saw inside their house because he just couldn't get in.
yeah.
So, just silly little things like that.
When we had our big conversation,
Yeah,
after Greg died and before Christmas,
yeah.
one of the main topics of our conversation and one of the things we really want to talk about today
Mm.
is frontal lobe dementia
Oh, yeah,
running concurrently with MND.
yeah,
My husband wasn't diagnosed for him, but his journey was very quick.
yeah.
But on reflection, he absolutely had some form of dementia. You said that Greg did as well.
He did, yeah. And maybe it was more noticeable because he had gone for 10 years.
Yep.
I noticed, but I did notice early in the piece his change of personality when something didn't go quite right or quite the way he had planned it, he would just suddenly blow up.
Mm.
And it was just very unusual. That just was like, whoa, where did that come from? And and I didn't know anything about frontal lobe dementia and MND.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I spoke to another beautiful friend whose husband has it and has had it longer than Greg.
Well,
Yeah, he's still alive today. So it was only when I spoke to her, she said, "Oh, with her husband, definitely." And she had done a bit of investigating and checked into it. She gave me the information. It was like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. It is real. It's not just me. It's not because I think sometimes it was diagnosed as frustration
yeah.
on their part, which I
Yeah.
get they do have. That
Totally
is
get it.
definitely frustration is something that's very real, but it's more than that. And a change of personality. And it's not just them crying at the drop of a hat or laughing uncontrollably at jokes that are not that funny. That is part of it as well. But this was, they're harmless things. Those two things are harmless. I'm talking about what seemed to be a change of personality and also a change in how they process logic and things that he would plan to do, and my friend's husband as well, just don't make sense. It's like you haven't thought this through. And the consequences are huge. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about the other thing that will happen or possibly happen because of the decision you've made? And that's something that I didn't know anything about and came across and found out quite accidentally. So there are now studies happening, and my friend and myself were privileged enough to be part of a research project into um, the cognitive changes in not everybody, but definitely some patients with MND, and that was done by Rebecca Francis, who's based at Flinders University, and she's done a fantastic job making people in the MND community aware of it.
As you said it, I was about to say exactly the same. Not everybody, not by a long shot,
No.
but it is something that I'm aware of, that you're aware of, that the more I speak with people in the community,
Mm.
that it is an issue. Um, and I know with us talking about all the things that you were saying is very bad decision making. Financially, it could have
Mm.
been a disaster for us. Um, yeah, losing temper
Mm-hmm.
when it
Yeah.
wasn't called for. And I actually put everything down to frustration.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't cope very well with it at all because I didn't know what was going on, and also because I didn't know what was going on, and I kept thinking to myself, I just have to be kind. I just have to be kind.
Mhm.
I just have to be kind, which I
Yeah.
think was very bad for my mental health as
Oh,
well.
definitely. I had a bit of counselling earlier in the piece, and I had a counsellor say to me one day, she said, just because he has MND does not give him permission to be how he is. She used a different word. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I
Let's
could
start with
say.
P.
She said, it doesn't give him permission to be like that to you. And I never forget that. And I thought, no, it doesn't actually. And I don't need to be a doormat and just take it thinking, well, he's not well. I've just because it does affect your mental health and you're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot. And they are absolutely, they
Mm,
are dealing with a lot. And what's going through, what's taking over their body is awful, but the carer, the primary carer slash usually spouse,
mm,
is dealing with a lot as well, and also having to take on a lot more around the house, whether it be male or female, taking on the load that that person used to carry. They're also doing that. So all that, as well as the appointments, the changes, the physical changes, just it weighs on you hugely. So yeah, having them blow up over silly things that perhaps they would never have before, just it's a yeah, it's not a good time. And at this, in the back of your mind, you think, I know that at any time now there's a possibility that his end of life might come. And I
mm.
don't want to be angry with him at the end of life.
Exactly.
And the other thing I think I mentioned to you when we had that long talk is you want to protect their reputation
Yes.
because you don't want the rest of the world, your friends, to see, and especially your family,
Mm,
them like that.
mm,
So you don't tell anybody. You just
mm.
keep it to yourself. So
Oh,
I know. I feel like I'm on the couch.
me too.
But that's where
Oh,
having the friend, the friends within the MND community who are walking a similar, if not the same path, because all MND, there's differences. There are differences, but generally we understand each other. So it's really, really important to be able to talk and offload to someone who understands completely.
it really is. And that, um, so Robert didn't have any understanding that he was going through changes. Did Greg? Uh,
He was aware, not
you-
initially. I don't think he was initially, but after a while, when we'd go to the clinic and his clinician would say, what's your mood like, Greg?
uh,
And I don't think he really understood that his mood, and he would always look to me and he'd go, well, I don't know, you tell him what my mood is like. It's like, thanks. What, you
yeah.
want me to tell him that you've been an asshole?
Yeah.
No.
That I
I
really don't
can.
like you very much today, and someone else
Yeah,
can take your place.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But he, there were days when he was, but then I knew that I got to pick when he was just frustrated, and he would often then apologize to me. So I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I'm just ticked or just angry and upset or something. But then I would have to say probably that was probably the first half. So the first 5 years was probably the worst. It's almost like he grew to an acceptance of it, and the last few years, while he would have his moments and he'd have his days, mostly he knew what was coming. It was almost like he'd accepted it, and while he still wanted to live, he still wanted to be around. He just seemed to have a peace about it as well. So I can't really explain that, but
He
he
had a
did.
faith, though, didn't he?
What was that?
He had faith.
Oh yeah,
Faith.
yeah, definitely, definitely, and that helped.
Yeah.
That helped a lot. And and maybe he just thought, I'm out. And actually, I actually wonder if that's why he eventually went. It's like, I'm out of here because it's just too hard. I'm too tired now. It's too hard. So yeah, his faith definitely helped him. But early in the piece, he he was quite aggro and angry, and I would say totally different personality to the Greg I married. And that's the thing, it was a totally different person to and we all change as we get older, but there was a significant change, not just physical, but
Yeah.
what was going on in his brain.
And Jen and I wanted to talk about this today because, um, well, she and Greg, and myself and Robert, we all suffered in silence for quite a long time, but you don't have to. So if you're worried about your partner, if you're worried about yourself, bring it up with your clinician, talk about it with your neurologist. And if you don't get an answer that you like, or they don't have a full understanding of it, go and ask someone else.
Mm, yeah, for sure. You
Mm,
have to be able to talk to someone.
yeah, because it's enough to deal with having MND, not having to deal with the rest as well. So yeah. So Rebecca from Flinders,
Yes.
has she written a paper? She released a paper.
She, look, if she hasn't, she will be.
Okay.
She's spoken at the,
Pactos?
yes, Pactals, she spoke. She's also been over to Canada
Oh, good.
and spoken there. She's definitely putting something together. It was agreed that people need to be aware of the possibility of cognitive changes,
Yeah.
but it's not something you discuss on your first appointment.
No.
No, so that actually was a major discussion point in the group. When do you bring it up? And a lot of people don't want to know about it,
Yeah.
but it's something that you at least need to, or the clinician, or well, that was the other thing, who tells them.
Yeah.
They need to, we need to be told at some point that this is possible. Okay, you may not want to hear about it now, but at least be aware of it, particularly, and I'll say particular, and I made this point, particularly if the person being diagnosed with MND looks after the finances in the house.
Amen, sister.
Yeah,
Mm.
because you can think, and this happened to me, that everything, because he could do that sitting at the computer. So,
Mm.
oh, great. I still don't have to worry about it. He can deal with that. He can pay the bills. He can work out, the money coming in, the money going out. That was something he was still able to do. So I thought. Um, and you just let them do it. And you continue on dealing with everything else that you have to deal with. But just if I could have my time again, I would have kept a closer look at what was going on.
And you
So
don't have to go into details of that, but it's something that everyone needs to be
that's
very well aware of. And I know that I mm, we nearly had not similar, but we nearly had an issue with that too, that Robert was on the computer on our bank and
right.
was about to transfer a whole lot of money to God knows where
Yeah,
or God knows why.
that's right.
And I caught it just at that
Yeah, that's right.
very important moment.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
I've heard other stories from people as well, similar. So it's just something that I think it would be good for nobody wants to hear it because you
no,
want to be able to trust your partner.
yeah,
But it's something that we need to be made aware of just so we can keep our eyes on it.
yeah. And I think we've done that pretty well today.
Yeah.
You've just had your first Christmas without Greg. It was not even 2 months after, so that was very tough and a
It
new
was.
year without him. And it's it's difficult navigating your new life.
Yeah, it is. It's people say, oh, when you get back to normal, and I think I don't know what normal is. I don't know if anyone really does, and
Hold on.
I guess I just want to eventually get back to some kind of routine, and that will be a routine that's totally different. But yeah, just finding. I mean, at the moment, everyone. When I say everyone, the world is still kind of in holiday mode, or we are here in Australia, so it's a little bit. It's not really a routine environment at the
No,
moment.
no.
So eventually that'll happen, I know, but I also know that I can't be too pushy with myself if it
No,
takes a little while. Getting all the other things organised.
a lot.
The Yeah, it's a lot of things you have to do. People you have to contact. Some places are really easy to let know about. Your partner being deceased. but other places it gets complicated, and it's like, oh, it's too hard. I just don't have the mental capacity to do this at the moment. I'll do it. I'll deal with it later. So there's still bills and things coming in that have Greg's name on it because I just can't be bothered changing it. But I
Yeah,
will
it's
get
really
around to
hard.
it.
And I
Yeah,
can't tell you how many times
yeah,
the company wanted to speak to Robert.
yeah. I know. Well, even when Greg was alive, I said, "Well, good luck because you won't understand anything he says." And that was a huge thing for a long time. I would have to, they said, "Well, we can't do anything until Greg's the primary person on the account, so we have to speak to him." I said, "Fine, here you go for your
Yeah.
life."
Yeah.
But you won't understand anything he says. Oh, well, in that case, he needs to come in. I said, well, good luck with that too, because I can't get him in.
I
So,
know.
it's like, what would you like me to do? I've got enduring power of attorney. What, that's not good enough?
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, oh my gosh. So, yeah,
I was
frustrating.
at a bank one day in relation to what we were talking about before, and they would not talk to me.
Mm.
I said, well, he can't talk to you. He can't come in. They said, well, accept an email. So I jumped onto his computer and I wrote an email on his signature, and then they would talk to me. So
Did exactly the same thing. They said, "We'll accept an email from him." I said, "Fine." So I sat at the computer, typed the email, probably get into trouble for saying that. I typed the email from regards Greg Downton.
yeah.
Like, seriously. Or I could have even got one of my sons to speak on the phone, and that would have been fine.
Yeah, we're honest
It's
people though.
just so,
Well, we're almost honest. Yeah.
it's so crazy. And the irony is, and the sad thing is, it was actually a lot easier dealing with the bank after he died.
Yes.
But I had a death certificate, so it was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you're it.
Yeah.
But when he was still alive and he had no, well, to get him there, I would have required an ambulance,
Yeah.
and he couldn't speak on the phone.
Mm,
It was very difficult.
it
Very difficult.
really is. So, is there anything else you'd like to say about anything, really?
Oh my goodness. Um, I don't know. It's other than, like you said it earlier, is don't try and do it alone.
Yeah.
Um, it's even if you just have one or two close friends in the MND community, it's really important to uh, have someone that you can talk to who
Yeah.
understands. I think one of the things that one day I'd like to do is write a handbook on the practical things. Almost like you've been diagnosed with MND, what now? Because the associations are fantastic with helping in a lot of ways, but it's what do you do with Centrelink? What can you get from the government that will help you out? Are you working still and you've had to give up a job? Are you on the pension? There's a lot of practical side of things that people are not aware of.
Yeah.
What happens when, like, if your partner has, if you have a joint credit card and he or she's the primary card holder, what happens when they die?
Yeah.
Um,
That's actually a big one.
yeah, you need to
Mm,
know.
mm,
Um, so just a lot of things that perhaps you can sort out before that unfortunate day comes,
mm.
and get it sorted. You still have a lot to deal with afterwards, but it does help. If you're on the NDIS, what do you do? What does it cover? What doesn't it cover? How can you get it to help you most? Aged care, how can you get it to help you the best? And we started a group. Just it sort of just morphed into an MND group. We just a bunch of us used to meet for coffee, and it's still running today. But MNDSA have taken it over, and we learn a lot from each other. There's a
Mm,
lot of things, and a lot of it is practical. Some of it is medication. What do you take for your
mm,
pain? What do you do? But it just bouncing off each other and learning from each other is such a huge,
mm.
huge thing and a huge help. And you become really good friends, and that's an important part of getting through this time of your life.
Well, that's really the main reason I started this podcast was for community
Yeah.
because so many of us are so isolated
Yes.
in the disease. So
Yes.
it's extremely important.
It is.
I'm so grateful for you coming on. I'm so grateful for you talking about for talking about the dementia. We don't want to scare anybody. What we want to do is say that it's not uncommon.
Mm.
So be aware of it. If you are a person with MND and you're a little unsure, do something about it. And if you're a carer, caring for someone with MND and they're just not quite right, you know, in your gut,
Yeah,
then ask for help. Do something about it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Well, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Thank you for doing these podcasts because yeah, it's so important to feel like you're not alone, and
Yeah,
it's a great help for so many people.
it is. So Jen and I were talking just before we jumped on that in Adelaide today it's 43.
Mm.
In Melbourne, this is Celsius for all you overseas people. In Melbourne yesterday it was 42. Tomorrow we're expecting 43. I think you're expecting the same.
Yeah.
So in summer in Australia, we tend to just, I don't
Yes.
know, hide a little bit some days.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. But that is just, you know that you're going to have hot
It's
weather
life.
every.
It's Australia.
Exactly. So
It is.
another 6 months we'll be complaining about the cold. So
2 weeks ago, I was complaining about the cold. So, my mother said to me, if you start complaining when it's hot. So,
yeah, that's it.
all
Anyway.
right, lovely. Thank you so very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. And we'll talk again soon.
I look forward to that.